Welcome to the Juice Box with Juice Springsteen, covering the week that was in professional wrestling. And hello everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Juice Box, coming to you this week during WrestleMania week. This is a very special episode I've been wanting to record for a very long time, and I'm thrilled that it is, taking place now, and it's going to air here in the middle of what is arguably the biggest week in pro wrestling all year, and that's WrestleMania week. Mania is in Vegas. AEW is passing Nitro with their episode of Dynamite this week for the longest running show on Turner at 289 episodes. I think there's a live Collision as well. SmackDown, Hall of Fame, GCW, Sabu's last match, WrestleMania both nights. I mean, it's loaded. This is a load. NXT, Stand and Deliver. Plenty of other independent shows as well. So much happening this week during WrestleMania week. And, I think last year for SummerSlam, I put together a couple of different episodes that we could dive into for that week. And I wanted to do that again here for WrestleMania. Now, it's not every Big Four that I do that, because Rumble, Survivor Series, Mania, SummerSlam, of course. If I've got certain material that lines up for those weeks, that's what's going to happen, and that's exactly what's happening this week, as we've got, yesterday we had the Main Event Maniacs episode air. Jay, Brian, great guys, happy to have them on board, and delivering a great episode of Main Event Maniacs this week, featuring the WrestleMania 35 main event of Ronda Rousey, Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair, the first ever women's main event at a WrestleMania. I was there. It was a very long event. The main event didn't start till after 12 a.m. Eastern. It was brutal, but it was a fun event, fun show, very interesting main event. A lot of hype surrounding it, as it should have. And those guys detailed it in a great way, and I hope you guys check out Main Event Maniacs, Ronda, Becky, Charlotte, WrestleMania 35. And then, of course, tomorrow and Friday, back-to-back, WrestleMania 41 predictions with myself, Josh Eisenberg, Justin LaBar, the CSR guys back in the fray. Night 1 predictions on Thursday, Night 2 predictions on Friday. Listen to it all before Saturday begins. I mean, we got that happening. We have this episode happening. We'll touch on what this is about. And then, of course, if you're into winning money and not having to spend money to get that money, poolpartygaming.com, at poolpartygaming on Twitter. The links are in my on my Twitter page, at JuicySteen, at Josh Eisenberg for Pool Party Gaming. Free to play, free to win. If you sign up and you play the WrestleMania Pick'em Pool, 30 unique prop-based questions, winners, losers, times of matches, potential surprises, overs, unders, everything you love about normal, sports gambling and the way that you can bet on things, but it's all free. And if you win the entire 2-night extravaganza, you will receive $200. And if you are a winner of Night 1 or a winner of Night 2, you will receive a shirt from WWE shop of your choosing and some Pool Party Gaming swag as well. So a shirt, I believe, maybe a sweatshirt's thrown in there as well. So a lot of interesting things going on here. Juicebox collaborating with Pool Party Gaming. We did it at Royal Rumble. We did it at Elimination Chamber, and that was a success. We had a winner from the Royal Rumble Pick'em, came through on Elimination Chamber, and we got to discuss the Elimination Chamber preview with him. We made our predictions. Myself, Josh, Eisenberg, and I believe Jared was the winner from the Royal Rumble pool. It was a great time. He won a t-shirt as well. He gave it to his son. So that was a great and successful venture, and we are doing it big here for WrestleMania. So the links are all over the social media sites. Go on Juicy Steen on Twitter. Go to Juicy Wrestling Closet on Instagram to check that out. And make sure you sign up. Like I said, free to play, free to win. As well, go to YouTube at Juicy Steen. You can also, of course, listen to the show anywhere you get your podcasts, whether that be on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, juicysteen.podbean.com, Amazon Music. If you do listen to the show on Spotify or via Apple Podcasts, on iTunes, leave a rating and review. It does help the show grow, so that would really benefit the Juice Box. But now to get at the matter at hand, this particular episode, hopefully you guys have made it this far, but it is the 5 straws of juice, the 5 pro wrestling events that shaped my fandom as a pro wrestling fan. This is just a random type of episode that kind of came into my head when I realized that there truly are 5 very significant, different, unique, but very memorable, to me at least, shows throughout the years. In one way or the other, I've got a story to tell for all 5. And it's just crazy because when we start talking about them, you kind of piece together certain things. And the final show that I list is really, it was 20 years ago, and it was the show that got me back into pro wrestling as a fan. And I haven't looked back since. So you'll see parallels of how, why I like certain shows, why I kind of fell off at a certain point, all that and more. So let's dive into it. The 5 straws of juice. Now, I am 32, born in 1993, the same month, as a matter of fact, that Monday Night Raw began. So my life has coincided with the tenure of Monday Night Raw, which I've always thought was a really cool thing as a pro wrestling fan. And the first event I went to that I know of was June 10th, 1996, Monday Nitro, WCW, Wheeling, West Virginia. And I'm there with my dad, my mom, and 2 of my aunts. Great time. I don't remember it. I was only 3. But it's the show where Kevin Nash comes back and re-debuts, shows up out of nowhere after being Diesel for, 3 years at that point. And it's the first, the first piece was Scott Hall. Kevin Nash was the second piece. And then, of course, Hulk Hogan turning into Hollywood Hogan to Bash the Beach a month later was that third piece. But I was in attendance at that show. Now, I would have put it in this 5 straws category. However, I don't recall anything from that show. But if you watch the show back, I've watched it countless times because it's just fun for me to see. If you watch the opening of the show with Larry Zbyszko and Tony Schiavone, you can catch my family, including myself, being held up by my dad in the background there over Larry Zbyszko's shoulder, which is fun. And then when Hacksaw Jim Duggan comes out to the ring, you can see as they pan to my dad holding me up, and I've got a little American flag waving it for Jim Duggan. And that was, how it all began. My dad, Juice Sr., he eventually, I think, will be on this show. I want to get him for a SIP series, quite frankly, next year, to get his insight on how he was a wrestling fan growing up and how that became a thing to where he decided to take me to shows, and look where it got me. Like, I've gone to 5 WrestleManias. I've done so many things. I've met so many people. I've had such a great experience as a wrestling fan thus far. And it doesn't really happen if I don't get exposed to the pro wrestling business as a fan from my dad. So, if anything, that's an honorable mention, but I just wanted to have a little origin story into this whole thing. So fast forward, I don't know, I probably was 9 or 10 maybe, and I'm at my grandma's house, and I'm going through, there's a big cabinet of VHS tapes. I'm looking through them. I don't know why. I'm just kind of curious as to what could be in this thing. And there's random recordings and this and that. And I find a tape labeled House. Now, this is, I believe, I think it's before the show House. So that was ruled out, but I never thought that was what it was anyway. But I've thought, wow, could this possibly be like a home movie, tape that I've never seen? Because my grandparents' house is where my dad grew up, and that would be fascinating to see some sort of older footage of my dad or my aunts, or anything that I might not have been aware of. And I was like, okay, House, that's really interesting. I'm going to pop this in. Let's see what it is. I did not see home movies that day. What I saw was WCW Starrcade 1990 Collision Course. This show was recorded on this tape. And I don't know what the tape, I don't know what House meant. And I still don't know. I don't know what it really means, if it meant anything at all. Because I never found out. I saw Starrcade 1990 on there, and I watched it. And as, self-described lower middle class, really didn't have much in the way of rewatchability of certain shows. And this is like 02, 03, 04, And, all we had were some WCW pay-per-views that we had recorded after buying them in the 90s and certain shows like that. But Starrcade 90, I was like, whoa, this is fascinating. I didn't have any idea. I knew who Sting was, and I knew, like, some of the guys that were on the show, but I really didn't have an idea of who truly most of these guys were. It was so long before I had really gotten into watching that I was kind of confused, but I was riveted by the show. The show as a whole really doesn't have a lot going for it. There's a Pat O'Connor Memorial Tag Team Tournament to determine, it's a big trophy celebrating tag team wrestling. And I always thought that was a unique way to have a tournament based inside of a pay-per-view like this. And of course, it ends up being the Steiner brothers taking on and defeating Mr. Saito and the Great Muta to win the tournament. And that was always a fun run for them. But a couple of other matches really stand out on this show. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, of course, the main event, Sting versus the Black Scorpion. I was very intrigued by that angle as a young viewer. And, of course, spoiler alert, it was Ric Flair. But I always felt very intrigued by the Black Scorpion storyline, even though, looking back, they never knew how to pay it off or didn't know how to pay it off. And they were just like, let's just do Flair. And outside of that, it's a really nothing match. But it's in a cage. It's exciting. Dick the Bruiser, special guest referee in one of his final appearances before he unfortunately passed away. But we also have Lex Luger winning back the NWA United States Championship against Stan the Lariat Hansen, who, I just met Stan Hansen at the Bruno Forever show I guess it was a month ago, yesterday, as a matter of fact. And I got to meet Stan Hansen, and a couple of years ago, I actually got to meet Lex Luger, so it's pretty wild that I've gotten to meet both guys in this particular match. And it blew me away after doing some further research that Stan Hansen had only actually been on 3 pay-per-view events in his career. And that's not to say he's not one of the most legendary pro wrestlers of his era, because he is. But it's just wild that in a time where pay-per-view really started to become a huge deal, he was only on 3 pay-per-views. And this was one of them. He was at Halloween Havoc 90, where he won the U.S. title, Starrcade 90, and Wrestle War 91. Both first 2 matches against Luger, the third match against Big Van Vader. Another one of my favorite matches to watch on this program, Starrcade 90, is a street fight for the NWA World Tag Titles, which somehow ends in a draw. Doom, Ron Simmons, Butch Reed versus Arn Anderson, Barry Windham, the Four Horsemen. Just a knockdown, drag-out match, and I love every bit of it. They just beat the tar out of each other. There's some blood in this match, some great spine busters, and I love just street fights back in the day where the competitors came out in jeans and ripped shirts and they were ready for a fight. Like, it was as street fight as you could get in kayfabe terms. So I love that match as well. But I gotta tell you, the match that riveted me to this tape, and I really think that it was because it's the opening match that I kept watching the tape, like I kept watching as if I would have shut it off. Like, I was fascinated with pro wrestling at a young age. It's not to say that I can't go back and watch these shows, because I do, but I don't have, maybe as much time as I did to just sit back and digest all of it. But the first match on this show is Bobby Eaton and Z-Man Tom Zink. No title on the line, no stakes. It's just an opening match between two pretty good wrestlers. Z-Man being a high flyer and a youngster at the time, and Bobby Eaton, who primarily a tag team wrestler, is one of the greatest and most underrated, I'd say. Even as I'd say greatest, he's also pretty underrated. I would wager from other circles, pro wrestlers of his time. And these two put on a great match. A great opening match. Bobby Eaton gets the win. And it's just a great technical match. And I remember just constantly rewatching this match, or, acting out this match with some bash and brawlers or my Tonka wrestling buddies. I would always mimic this match. I loved this match so much. And I think it's arguably what got me hooked into everything. Not the main events, not the world titles, not the big stars. It was Bobby Eaton and Z-Man. And I've always found that fascinating. But Starrcade 90 is that first straw that I really gravitated towards. And I'm so glad that, I found that random tape that said House mislabeled on it, because it was Starrcade 90. And I would say that's the first of the 5 straws of Juice. So check out Starrcade 90 if you haven't. I had the opportunity to do a watch along with the folks over at No Bones About Wrestling. Did a watch along with them, and I kind of went over that same story. And again, loved every second of the rewatch. So can't recommend that pay-per-view enough. Interestingly enough, the next show on this special episode here, the 5 Straws of Juice, another early WCW show that was recorded on tape. Now, this was a show that my dad had taped, and I saw it on, I saw the label, the old VHS tapes. They got the white sticker label, and just written in pen was WCW Clash of the Champions 17, and I loved every bit of this. This was a unique look into, this is right as we're in the Dangerous Alliance. It's the first show after the Clash, or after Halloween Havoc 91, where Rick Rude famously joins WCW, becomes a part of the Dangerous Alliance, which was, if you recall, a very, very stacked, talented group with, Beautiful Bobby, Rick Rude, Zbyszko, Steve Austin, of course, Paul Heyman. If I'm missing someone, I'm not sure if I'm missing anybody. Arn Anderson. I mentioned Arn Anderson and Steve Austin. So it's just what a wonderful group dynamic of guys to all kind of, want to take out Sting, and they're underneath this maniacal guy that's got a big cell phone, Paul Heyman, which is crazy, man. Paulie Dangerously, Paul Heyman, for a guy that was just a lowly guy here, at doing photog work at Madison Square Garden and all these things, becomes the leader of this group, with almost every single guy being, a world champion or a future Hall of Famer. And then he helps establish ECW and changes the pro wrestling world. And then continues his work into WWE and is still doing it to this day. It's wild. But this particular show, it's a really not that special show. But there's 2 big moments that I want to discuss. That's why I remember them so well. The first being, it's a tag team match, and it is the Enforcers. It's Arn Anderson, Larry Zbyszko, who are the tag champs, taking on Dustin Rhodes, and it was supposed to be Barry Windham. Oh no! At Halloween Havoc, there was a great angle that they had early before the show, where Dustin and Barry pull up, And the Enforcers come out, and Larry Zbyszko, greatly nicknamed the Cruncher after this moment, slams the car door into Barry Windham, breaking his arm, and they had to drive away. Who does Dustin Rhodes get to be his tag team partner? As a guy coming out with a bizarre, huge green animalistic mask. Who the hell could it be? And he reveals the mask, and he's none other than Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. The place goes nuts. The Enforcers selling a facial reaction is just incredible. They're stunned. They don't know what to believe. And Dustin Rhodes and Ricky Steamboat win the tag team titles. And it's a great, great surprise and moment. And the other great moment in this show is the through line from the second to last match is Rick Rude versus Sting for the U.S. title, because this is Clash of the Champions. The tag title's on the line, the light heavyweight title's on the line, the TV title's on the line, U.S. title, and world title. 5 titles on this random middle of November show. Right before Starrcade, their big show. And the through line, it starts off with Sting receiving a gift, and he's been getting these gifts for a couple weeks now. And in this, it's a big gift. It's like a chariot of sorts that is carried out by a bunch of guys. Medusa, who's also a part of the Dangerous Alliance after this, comes out of there, and she's kind of trying to seduce Sting, but out from under that same box that was delivered is the World Heavyweight Champion, Lex Luger, clips Sting in the knee, hurts Sting's knee, and it's wrapped up. They take him in an ambulance to a local medical facility. They get Eric Bischoff out there on site to report on it. And then in the contract clause, once we get to the main event, it's Rick Rude and Paulie Dangerously saying if Sting does not return to the ring after a 10 count, he will lose the U.S. title, and Rick Rude will automatically be declared the new champion. Sting gets to the building as they start counting. He's fighting to get in the building. He makes it in the building. He makes it in within the 10 seconds. They have a fiery 5-minute match, but Rick Rude gets the upper hand, ends up defeating Sting to win the U.S. title. It's a great through-line story for a Clash of the Champions. It's riveting TV, and it concludes with a unique way to get the belt on a bad guy, to establish this Dangerous Alliance as a true threat, because the tag titles just got lost, but now the U.S. title's captured, and Sting, of course, goes on to try to win, and he does, the world title a few months later at Super Brawl 2. But Clash of the Champions 17, November, I believe it's November 19th, I want to say, in 1991, Savannah, Georgia. It's also unique to me because November 19th, that's 2 days removed from my parents' wedding anniversary. And I know that might not mean a lot to anybody, but to me, it's cool to have the perspective of just a mere year before, a wedding took place that would ultimately, it changed everybody. I became something. I was birthed, from all this. A year earlier, my dad was taping Clash of the Champions. He probably watched this show. And it's just cool to have that perspective of time and how things are, where people are at certain points. And I just like watching that it's like a time capsule. And the best part about all these shows, now Starrcade 90 and the final 3 shows that we're going to talk about are all pay-per-views. But the Clash of the Champions 17 is not. It was a TV show. It was on TBS, and it was recorded from the TV live. So there's commercials in there. I remember a 7-Up commercial. I remember just a lot of fun ads from 91 that they pepper throughout the program. And again, it's just a nice nostalgia trip. It's really what pro wrestling is at the end of the day, but I love going back and rewatching it. And I think I'm going to end up rewatching a few of these shows at some point here soon, just because I'm getting jazzed up just discussing it. So, Clash of the Champions 17. Now we get into some more interesting territory a few years later. Now, this is where the story continues for me. So I've grown up with Starrcade 90 and Clash 17 and some random WCW pay-per-views throughout the years as my only, tapes to watch. There was no internet access to watch a bunch of shows like there is now. It's not that I didn't have internet, although I didn't have internet until probably 05-ish, maybe 06. And it was dial up, and then it became high speed internet, and we progressed very slowly, but it happened. But even then, I mean, trying to get on WWE.com was a nightmare. But all I'm saying is it wasn't as easy to get to some of the wrestling that you can get to now. Especially, look, the WWE Vault is an amazing tool on YouTube. Hell, you can go to the WCW channel on YouTube, and they have full-fledged pay-per-views just a click away. No subscription needed. You can just watch whenever you want, and it's great because there's comments in there, so you can kind of see other people who might have never watched this before, and it opens up so many more potential viewers to these shows, and I love that. So back to the story. I am just basically only watching anything recorded on VHS that we've had at the house. And this is where we get to the next part here. This first of the early 2000s shows here of the 5 straws of Juice. My dad, Juice Sr., as we've brought up before, man, he's pretty important. Again, this is exactly why I want to do the SIP series on him, hopefully in 2026 to commemorate the 30 years since that June 10th, 1996 episode of Nitro that we were on. But my dad played deck hockey. Now, if you're unfamiliar with deck hockey, it's not ice hockey and it's not roller hockey. So he's not ice skating, he's not roller skating. It's on a deck. It's just running. It's all just running around. It's with your feet. It's a very unique way of playing. It's basically just playing, in the back, not your backyard necessarily. I guess that would be field hockey, but in your driveway or on the street, like you're just playing street hockey. But deck hockey is, I guess, more of a not professional term, but it's more organized. There's a real rink and whatever. But I always found it interesting because it's, people say, oh, well, you can stop on a dime with deck hockey, but you also can't just coast and regain your breath. So you do get a lot taken out of you, but I digress. Where my dad played deck hockey was probably 35 minutes from where we lived. And the owner / manager / just person that kind of manned the ship after a while was this older lady. I can't remember. What's her name? I really want to say her name was Darlene. But if I get that wrong, I do apologize. I'll have to fact check that after the show. But let's just go with it. I'll just say she, because she was just an older lady. She either had family members that liked wrestling or she was a wrestling fan. Either way, they would be buying pay-per-views and recording them on tape. And, they knew I was a fan. My dad was a fan. I was given a pay-per-view from, what they had, what they recorded. And it was Royal Rumble 2000. This is, it's Madison Square Garden. It's, God, man, this is such a great show. It's Madison Square Garden. It's the Hardy Boys and the Dudley Boys in a tag team tables match, the first ever. It's Taz making his debut in WWF against Kurt Angle in New York. It's a great moment. You get, of course, the Royal Rumble match. And then you get Triple H, Cactus Jack in a street fight for the WWF title. It is mind-boggling that this show and then the following show we're going to discuss here in the 5 Straws of Juice, that these 2 shows were given to me, random shows that, this person had recorded from live pay-per-view. And I got them, and they turned out, looking back 25 years later, these are some of the most revered shows ever in the history of pro wrestling. So it's no wonder why I got even more hooked to pro wrestling from this vantage point. Because I could tell you this, if it was, I don't know, WCW Sold Out 2000, even though I do like the Funk Kevin Nash match, I doubt I would be as enthralled with pro wrestling. I'd probably still be a fan. But to see Triple H and Cactus Jack in a street fight, Madison Square Garden, Jeff Hardy jumping off the taxi, Taz getting a huge pop, Miss Rumble 2000, if you recall, that little fiasco, that's the end of that, then it's no wonder that I'm such a huge fan. I mean, I love this show. It's got a great vibe. I love the logo of the show. It's got the lowercase Royal Rumble letters. Man, I mean, Cactus Jack makes his WWF debut. Like, that's how they had to change things. Like, man, Mankind wasn't getting it done. Dude Love couldn't get it done. Mick Foley damn sure couldn't do it. But Triple H, you're going to fight Cactus Jack. And I remember the promos. I got goosebumps just talking about it, where it's like this guy, Dude Love comes out, and then no, Mankind comes through. No, you're going to see this guy. And you see the Wanted Dead shirt. And man, this is just a wonderful, wonderful match overall. And now I actually look on the Wikipedia for this. It's the 100th pay-per-view produced by the World Wrestling Federation, which is a pretty unique milestone. And again, one hell of a show to have that milestone. I mean, I even look here. It's, and I know Wikipedia is what it is, but it says the event has been named as one of the 15 best pay-per-views ever by WWE. So there you go. WWE even reveres this show. And again, the fact that I was just given this show as, oh yeah, like, you like wrestling, here's a pay-per-view from, I couldn't tell you when I actually got it, but I watched this show on this tape so many damn times. But Royal Rumble 2000, go out of your way to watch this one. If you're not going to watch any of the other ones, you got to watch this. Especially that Miss Rumble 2000 swimsuit contest. Oh, brother. So that show was given to me on tape by the lady at the deck hockey rink, and I was like, okay, great. Like, again, looking back, it's pretty wild to see that this was what it was. And now you come to this next show in the 5 Straws of Juice. This was another show given to me, on a VHS tape, recorded from the TV. I've watched it hundreds of times, and it just so happens to be the greatest pay-per-view of all time, if not greatest WrestleMania, greatest pretty much show as a whole of all time. WrestleMania X7, WrestleMania 17, April 1st, 2001. Everything about this show, I think, is perfect. It's in a huge, huge stadium, the Reliant Astrodome, 67,900 fans, a huge buy rate. WCW had been sold just 6 days earlier, so the WWE was on such a high. Look what we did. We beat our competition, and this is how we're going to celebrate. And I mean, look, Paul Heyman's debut in WWE, or WrestleMania here, and it was on commentary. He's on commentary for this show, and I think that's what gives it a lot of cachet. JR and Paul Heyman, it's such a wonderful, wonderful commentary team there. And of course, you get the Gimmick Battle Royal. We'll start talking about matches. The Gimmick Battle Royal, you get Gene Okerlund and Bobby Heenan together again. And that was, WCW had closed, so you really didn't get these guys much after the fact. And like I said, WCW just got sold. They're on such a high. And I'm going to run down all these matches. You get Chris Jericho versus William Regal for the IC title. Great technical match. You get a fun 6-man tag with Taz and the APA versus the Right to Censor. Arguably one of the most memorable hardcore title matches ever. Big Show, Raven, and Kane. It is what it is match with Eddie Guerrero and Test for the European title. Kurt Angle versus Chris Benoit, one-on-one, straight-up wrestling match. Chyna defeated Ivory for the women's title, and sure, it was a squash. It was 2 minutes, 38 seconds. but it was exactly what it needed to be, and it put China on the map as the next, big thing for women in the biz, and it was a wonderful moment. Shane McMahon versus Vince in a street fight with Mick Foley as guest referee. You got the Linda drugged out thing, and then she, kicks Vince in the balls. You get the coast to coast. Man, this match is just wild. Then, of course, after that, you get the greatest match, in my opinion, in WrestleMania history, which is TLC 2, tables, ladders, chairs, Edge and Christian, the Dudley Boys, the Hardy Boys. I've watched this match, I'm not kidding, probably over 100 times. And I get chills watching it. I get chills talking about it. I get chills thinking about it. It's my favorite, probably, WrestleMania match of all time to rewatch. Everybody hits on all cylinders. Every team gets someone to help them out, whether it's Lita, Spike Dudley, Rhino. It's such a perfect match. And like I said, with Paul Heyman on commentary this whole show, it adds so much gravitas to every single moment of this show. Every match, every nuance. Paul Heyman adds so much more color. And of course, paired with Jim Ross, it kind of gave me that old school like Starrcade 90 feel. Because Starrcade 90 had Heyman and JR. So you get pretty much the same type. It's so funny how these things work, where the parallels of these shows and why I kind of fell in love with wrestling because of them. Of course, you get the gimmick battle royal, which had so many fun entrants in it. I mean, it was so good. I mean, there were so many different guys in there. The Goon was in there. You had Bruce. Why can't I think of his name? Brother Love was in there. So many, the Bushwhackers, Duke the Dumpster Drosé, Doink the Clown, Tugboat, Nikolai Volkov, Earthquake, Gobbledygooker, Michael Hayes, One Man Gang, Kamala, Kimchi, Jim Cornette, Repo Man, Sergeant Slaughter. Iron Sheik winning by defeating Hillbilly Jim is a great, great moment, especially considering, it'll be WrestleMania 38 by the time Sheik gets to the ring, as quipped by Bobby Heenan. And since Sheik has passed, Heenan has passed, WrestleMania 38 has passed. It's very just a reminder that time is undefeated. And then you get the great moment of Sergeant Slaughter putting on the Cobra Clutch after the fact on Iron Sheik to kind of rebuild that. And just everything about that, man, is so good. Again, with Bobby Heenan, Gene Okerlund at the helm. Undertaker and Triple H in the first of their 3 great WrestleMania matches. Undertaker gets the win. And then no DQ. Austin versus Rock. They had their first one at Mania 15. They have one more at Mania 19. But this one is the one that really changed everything. Steve Austin, making a deal with the devil, shaking hands with Vince McMahon, beating down The Rock with a steel chair. I can still recall Vince, as he's hitting him with the chair, he covers him, and each 1, 2, 3, Vince like emphatically throwing his 1, 2, and 3 up in the air. I just remember everything about it, even though the fans, we're supposed to boo. How, you're going to boo Steve Austin for joining Vince. But it was in Texas, and they loved every second of it. Of course, the invasion was what it was, and it probably fell incredibly short of expectations. But damn it, this match and this show was such a great culmination of WCW, ECW, the Monday Night Wars coming to an end, WWE being the victor, having the celebration, and showing you this is what we do. This is how we won. This is how pro wrestling can get to a level that we, it's unseen. We take wrestling to such a high standard with WrestleMania. That's what they wanted to do. And they did it. They proved it. And I'd wager this was the end of the Attitude Era, but it's arguably the greatest WrestleMania, if not greatest pro wrestling pay-per-view ever produced. It's just all gold. Everything is amazing. So again, having that show and Rumble 2000 just given to me as like literally two random shows for no reason. I was given to them. I was given them, a couple years after the fact, and I was like, okay, or maybe not after the fact. I probably got them both in '01, but it was like, all right, like these are great. This is exciting. I was probably 7 and 8, probably watching these. I probably got Rumble later that year, but watching them over and over again as I got older, just drove it home, man. And it was just, I love these shows, and that's why they are in the 5 straws of juice. Let's tackle the last show. So I said for WrestleMania 17, end of the Attitude Era, culmination of the Monday Night War, WCW, ECW, losing to WWE. And, of course, WCW losing was very tough on me. I was a WCW guy. I'm the biggest WCW fan you'll see and know and talk to. And, there's no surprise there. When they go out of business, it's '01. I watched Mania 17, but I don't know how much else I watched that year, to be honest. And that's a year with Kurt Angle, Pittsburgh guy, winning the world title days after 9/11 in Pittsburgh from Austin. Great moments throughout '02, '03, and '04, including Taker coming back from American Badass to the Dead Man, Brock Lesnar's ascension, Austin's last match with The Rock, Eric Bischoff showing up. So many things happened in those 4 years from '01 to 2005. And I pretty much was vacant and didn't really see any, if all, if any at all, of any of those shows. And, of course, I've since gone back and watched them and have really found a lot to enjoy from those times. And I remember things happening, but I was not invested. I was just not invested as a fan. Come 2005, No Way Out 2005 was, the show between Rumble and Mania, and it took place in Pittsburgh. Now, I didn't go to the show, but when I heard a radio advertisement for the show, and it was Big Show, who I knew, taking on John Bradshaw Layfield, who I didn't know, in a barbed wire steel cage match for the WWE title, needless to say, I was very intrigued. It was like, oh, wrestling is still happening, and it's WWE, and they're still, doing great, and they're in Pittsburgh, and it's a barbed wire steel cage match, and I was like, damn, this is really interesting stuff. And I didn't go to the show. I didn't even buy the pay-per-view. I remember, I think, just reading about what happened online probably the next day, finding out Big Show chokeslammed JBL through the ring. JBL climbs under the ring, and he's a winner by way of escape. Fascinated by that. And then I got hooked. I saw John Cena come into prominence as, his album was dropping the week of WrestleMania 21. I bought that. I was hook, line, and sinker on John Cena. I had the Livestrong bracelets on my shoes. I loved that he was just a quick, fast-thinking, trash-talking rapper, but, very charismatic, and it was just very believable. And I was hooked. I was watching Raw. I was watching SmackDown. And the first pay-per-view that my family and I, my dad, myself, my mom, probably watched a little bit of it because she was, very integral in watching wrestling as well. There's pictures of her with Conan and Sting pointing at her Sting-sational sign at Nitro, and a lot of great moments. I think she got a photo with Nash as well, maybe if I'm mistaken. Maybe I'm mistaken. But WrestleMania 21, we bought it on pay-per-view. And, this is not the greatest show. It's certainly not the worst show. I even say it's a top 10 WrestleMania to me. And there's so much on this thing. It's fun how this is 20 years to where we're at now, where I was so invested in John Cena winning his first world title, and now this weekend, 20 years later, he's trying to win his 17th to surpass Ric Flair, a mark we never thought we'd see even get close to being challenged. This show, Staples Center, April 3rd, 2005. And we'll bring up another little story in here, but listen to this. The matches on this show. It opens up with Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero. Eddie Guerrero's final WrestleMania match, as he unfortunately passed away later in 2005. And it's a great match between two guys that were tag team champions at the time, but it was like, hey, let's have a one-on-one respectful match. And they had a damn near perfect opener. So much fun. And then we get to the next match. The inaugural Money in the Bank ladder match. And here's the great story. Friend of the show, he's contributed in the audio department for sure in regards to Main Event Maniacs and some other ventures. Arguably the biggest supporter of the Juice Box and my best friend for 20 years. That would be Matt. I was best man at his wedding. And, he participated in our backyard, quote-unquote, wrestling promotion and assisted in doing the Pro Wrestling Action Figure Federation that we had as well growing up. And we'd do call-in shows together as guests. We would host some shows as well throughout the years. And just so many things that he and I are tied into with pro wrestling and why we're friends, 20 years later. And this match, the Money in the Bank ladder match, kind of got the ball rolling. Matt was in my English class. He was in the seat behind me in my English class in 6th grade. And I remember watching WrestleMania 21. Like I said, I hadn't watched a pay-per-view in a long time, and we bought this show, and I was hooked into pro wrestling again after a long time of not watching. And Matt, I knew liked wrestling, and I didn't even know he lived as close to me as he did, which was great because that's how we became even closer and got to hang out all the time. And he was like, "Oh man, like did you get to watch WrestleMania?" And I was like, "Yeah, I watched it. Like it was I loved it." And it's just so funny. I'm pretty sure he just didn't believe me, flat out. Like he just didn't believe we bought it, or I was a liar, or just wanted to call me out for it, or what, I don't know. And I'm looking too deep into it. We were 12 years old at the time, but that's what I thought. I could have been somewhat right, but he's like, "All right, well, if you saw it, tell me one thing that, like, name something really cool that happened," right? And without blinking, I was like, well, in the Money in the Bank ladder match, Shelton Benjamin ran up the tilted ladder and hit a clothesline on Chris Jericho. And he was like, "You know what? That was pretty awesome." And that was it. It was a friendship from there. And it grew from that to all the stuff I just laid out for you. Wrestling Federation, backyard, figure federations, inside the house, friendship forever. All because of this. Mania 21 kicked it all off. And the Money in the Bank now is such a huge deal in WWE that they've had its own pay-per-view now. I wish it would go back to being at WrestleMania because it was always like, wow, like this is the best match you're going to see. This is, maybe not the best match, but this is a car crash you're going to see. This is a chance for someone to get an opportunity for a world title match at any point for a year, and they could cash in whenever they want. And for Manias 21 through 26, they had a Money in the Bank ladder match. Of course, at the same year of 26, they had the Money in the Bank pay-per-view for the first time. And, of course, it diluted it, and it's frustrating. But now it's a staple. It's a big show, and I love Money in the Bank as a PLE. However, I would love to see it at WrestleMania once again. I don't know if it'll ever get back there because of the lucrativeness of it being its own pay-per-view, or PLE. But that being said, the first one was incredible, riveting. Benoit takes some crazy damage here. Shelton Benjamin's an absolute freak. Edge gets the win and solidifies me as a huge Edge fan too, because then he becomes the ultimate opportunist, cashes in on John Cena, who I had, of course, grown tired of just 6 months after him being champion, or maybe even probably 4 months I was sick of him. And then by January of 2006, Edge wins the title, and I'm thrilled. And I was a huge Edge head. My AIM name dealt with Edge and Randy Orton. Like, I was hook, line, and sinker with Edge and the Rated R Superstar and all of that. And again, this match is kind of what got him to that next level, and it made new stars. So I do. I miss it at WrestleMania. Undertaker and Randy Orton, great match involving the streak. And this is where they were starting to acknowledge the streak, if I recall, as a streak. Like, oh, like he won again, you know? Can you believe that? He did win again. And I think he was 11 or 12-0 maybe at this point. Probably 12-0 maybe. And this match, of course, I love the choke slam into the RKO reversal by Orton. Incredible match. Probably one of the best Undertaker streak matches in that realm of those years. Like the Kane one, 03 was okay. Or, I mean, like it was just whatever. 02 was really good with Flair. 01 Triple H. But I mean, after this, Mark Henry, it's okay. Batista's great. The Edge match is great, and then the two Michaels matches are great. It just, Punk, it does get better. But this was like a really, really strong outing, and like, okay, I think you can guarantee Taker's going to have a wonderful Mania match every year. You get Trish Stratus versus Christy Hemme, which is cool. Christy Hemme getting a little bit of a shot in the spotlight here for the women's title, which is nice to see. Kurt Angle, Shawn Michaels, arguably one of the greatest WrestleMania matches of all time, and I loved it because Shawn Michaels is Mr. WrestleMania, but he tapped out in the center of the ring like it was nothing. Like Kurt Angle was like, no, you're Mr. WrestleMania, but I'm Mr. Wrestling. Like this is more than a pay-per-view, buddy. And that's one of my favorite matches of all time, if not one of the greatest matches of all time. We had the interesting sumo match between Akebono and Big Show, which was, looking back, was kind of bizarre. But, again, WrestleMania is a spectacle. Of course, Akebono, unfortunately, passed away just a year ago. But, I mean, this is WWE loves to really put forth, like, hey, wrestling is more than that. It's sports entertainment, It's really just all about the spectacle, and sumo wrestling lends itself to that, especially if you watch the Pat McAfee Big Night At a couple of weeks ago. I mean, there's a perfect example of that, but just a very interesting spectacle for sure with Akebono and Big Show. And I was intrigued. I'm like, what am I going to lie about that? I was intrigued by that. Then, of course, the final two matches. This is another cool part here. The world title had been held by Triple H for a very long time. JBL had held the WWE title for a very long time. 2004 was just like, oh, God, these guys, again, they find a way to win. They squeak out a win. What are you going to do? Like, God, they're just going to keep winning. And all of a sudden, you get young upstart John Cena flying through the ranks. Batista, who had been a part of Evolution. Those two guys are the final two in the Royal Rumble. That's a whole nother story with the Royal Rumble 05 finish and the double torn quads by Vince. But Batista wins the Rumble. He goes against Triple H. Cena gets the number one contendership. He takes on JBL. The first of the two, Cena gets the win. As standard of a world title match as you'll see, a WWE title match. But I can remember it clean as day. I remember playing with the action figures and literally assuming, oh, JBL will probably try to hit a clothesline from hell. Cena will duck. He'll hit him with the FU, and that'll be it. And that's exactly what happened. It was a duck from the clothesline from hell. He hit the FU, 1, 2, 3. Cena celebrates in the stands. I remember him kind of falling back into the crowd with the title, and he's the last guy to hold the undisputed title, which I love that design. I kind of wish I'd bring that back. Turns it into a spinner belt, and that goes on for 8 years. That title is the same design until 2014. So that changed a lot as well. A real changing of the guard. And then on the same token, Batista defeats Triple H in the main event to win the world title. A bloody match. They have a great Hell in a Cell match later on in the year. Vengeance '05. So does Shawn Michaels and Kurt Angle, by the way. They have two great rematches at those shows for the Raw brand. But Batista wins. He's celebrating with the confetti. Batista's the next, young upstart champion. Cena's the next young upstart champion. Batista ends up being one of the best of all time. Multiple world title reigns. Great matches at WrestleMania with, Triple H, Undertaker. And, you get the amazing double whammy of Triple H being the opener of Mania 30, losing to Daniel Bryan, and Daniel Bryan making Batista tap out to win the world title at Mania 30 to culminate and elevate that, quote-unquote new era. So those guys were very instrumental in that even years later. Like I said, Cena now, 20 years later, looking for his 16th, now 17th championship after his first one at Mania 21, 16 title reigns later, potentially on the precipice for one more to surpass Ric Flair. Man, I don't know. It's just wild to go back, check out these shows, see the parallels, like the Paul Heyman / Paulie Dangerously Jim Ross commentary connection is wonderful. The connections with my dad, with Clash 17, and where it relates to him getting married just a year later, almost exactly to the day, and me finding the tape in my grandparents' house and thinking it was maybe a movie of my dad, and it turned out to be a pay-per-view. To my dad playing deck hockey and getting gifted two of the greatest pay-per-views of all time just on VHS for me to consume. And then, the guy that I'm best man for at his wedding who gives a speech about, how we became friends because of wrestling and all these ins and outs of why, we've been so close. And it's all because of pro wrestling. But it starts with WrestleMania 21. And that was connected with Mania 17 because I hadn't watched wrestling since then. It's just, I love that these shows all have some sort of connection outside of it just being, the 5 straws of juice, which this has been. And it's been a wonderful trip down memory lane for me. I know this is kind of a bizarre episode, and I'm not sure how much traction this episode specifically will even get, but I really just wanted to provide an in-depth look at 5 shows that I just kind of stumbled upon, realizing that they make me as a wrestling fan. They have cultivated what I am today and what I like, how I became a fan to such a degree where I'm at now, where, I host a weekly wrestling podcast, and I've been to 5 WrestleManias, and I've been on, I've had other moments where, I've seen some other shows and gone to all these other shows and I've met new people and I've had new friendships, and I talked to my dad about all these shows that I've gone to now and just how things build and connect through life. Man, pro wrestling is it's the greatest form of entertainment in my not so humble opinion as a guy who hosts a pro wrestling podcast. But if you've listened all the way through, I really appreciate it. If you haven't, I respect that you at least clicked on it to begin with, but maybe check it out later. I swear, it's not that bad. It's under an hour. But this has been the 5 Straws of Juice, the 5 events that shaped my fandom as a pro wrestling fan. Really appreciate you guys checking it out, and appreciate you guys checking out everything here on the Juice Box during WrestleMania week, including Main Event Maniacs, Ronda, Becky, Charlotte from WrestleMania 35. Brian and Jay did a great job. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode, the 5 Straws of Juice, as I said. And then tune in tomorrow and Friday for the WrestleMania 41 Night 1 and Night 2 predictions with yours truly, Justin LaBar and Josh Eisenberg, the 3 of the guys from Chairshot Reality. We couldn't get Ghoulish or Rev or Katie Arquette or Britt, but we do got the 3 J's, Triple J. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. And ultimately, hopefully you guys enjoy WrestleMania and all the events that take place before, during, and after this week. It's the best week and time to be a pro wrestling fan, so I really hope you guys get out there, watch what you can, get angry about it if you want on Twitter, but in all seriousness, just enjoy the damn shows. It's wonderful what the pro wrestlers and companies produce all in this week for the betterment of the industry and for the fans. And as a podcast that's done for fans by a fan, I appreciate everything that pro wrestling has done for me and those out there who appreciate it as much as I do. So with that all being said, I hope you guys enjoyed the 5 straws of juice, the 5 events that shaped my pro wrestling fandom. I am Juice Springsteen, and I will see you guys next week with another edition of The Juice Box. That was The Juice Box with Juice Springsteen. Make sure to subscribe to The Juice Box wherever you listen to podcasts.